Hello and welcome to the wonderful world of pocket-sized model railway modules. They are suited for N-scale and for 009 and HON 30 narrow gauge scales. They are made to be compatible with the Kato Mini Dioramas from Japan. You can find a lot more information about pocket-sized modules uh, on Facebook, and you can also find there in the file section the guidelines, which he gives a lot of details as to the standards for the modules and ideas on how to make them. The module that we are making today for this video is a pentagonal curve module. Now, the original Kato Mini Dioramas used the 183mm radius 45-degree curved Kato Unitrack, and because pocket-sized modules are made to be compatible with them, our curved modules also match that, except that when you are able to do a comparison, you will find that we have a lot more real estate. Now, the materials for this particular way of making the curved modules is 3mm thick balsa wood and 5mm thick foam core. Now, in the guidelines, there are diagrams for all of the main types of modules. When you're making a pentagonal curve module, you'll need to find the diagram for the appropriate curve that you want and print it out, or at least make a hand copy of the basic dimensions. Now, with the diagram, there is what's called a red construction box. It doesn't show up red on my black and white print, but nevertheless you should be able to see there that there's a large, almost square box there, and the pentagon is drawn out within that. So what you'll need to do is print out that image of the top view of the module from the relevant page of the pocket size modules guidelines. Now, it doesn't have to be the same size as the actual module. We're using it to source the dimensions. As I said before, please note the construction box, as this is crucial to marking out the edges of the module without having to use a protractor. Here you can see I have drawn out the construction box on the sheet of foam core, and using the sides of the construction box, following the dimensions on the diagram, I'm able to mark out the actual pentagon. Now, with the external dimensions of the curve module marked out on the foam core, we then have to make an allowance for the thickness of the material that we're going to use for the sides. This is assuming that the sides are going to be the full 25mm height of the module. And I prefer that because it gives a better look on the outside. So I'm using 3mm thick balsa wood that I will be cutting to 25mm wide strips. So therefore, I have to reduce the overall dimensions of the curve module by 3mm on each side. Now you've got to make sure that you measure in 3mm at right angles to each side, so that everything is 3mm narrower, so to speak. Yeah, you'll get the drift when you make one. This creates the slightly smaller pentagon. Right, now to make life a lot easier, you cut out the construction box markings from the big sheet of foam core. Right, now you do this so that you've got a far more manageable piece of foam core to actually cut the pentagon. Now the foam core is 5mm thick, which starts to become a bit of a challenge to get a nice, clean, right angle edge. So I suggest you consult some of the YouTube videos that are about on how to cut foam core neatly. Essentially, it gets down to taking your time, having a good sharp blade, and making several light cuts rather than trying to make it all in one hit. This is the back of the header board off the pack of 3mm thick balsa wood that I buy from an Australian chain store called Spotlight. I don't know whether this will apply to other places in the world, but it will give you an idea. As long as you can get balsa wood that's 3mm thick, that's fine. You can get it from model aircraft, supply shops, all sorts of different things, craft shops. There is stuff out there called Polonia wood, sometimes referred to as hobby wood, which is a lot harder and grainier than balsa. I tried it, got to the point of swearing at it, nearly shed blood over it, literally, trying to cut it nice and square. It's not nice. Others may vary, but my experience is not nice. So stick with the balsa. You can find it in lots of places. And for those who are still in the world of imperial measurements, 3mm is essentially 1/8 of an inch. Thank you. Now, to glue everything together, you could try PVA glue, the normal stuff, along with the pins, which I'll show you a bit later. But I use this glue called Weld Bond, which is sort of a dynamic PVA. Dries fairly quick. You might get away with some of the Gorilla Grip PVA type stuff. They've got that pinky beige stuff that may do it, as long as it's compatible with foam plastic, like expanded polystyrene stuff, because it's really what's at the core of Foamcore. So you don't want something that's going to dissolve that. I found this really good stuff. For folks who want to chase down Weld Bond, this is the details here of its manufacturer and all that sort of stuff. Hopefully you can find it. As I said, it's really good stuff. Now, one of the beaut things about doing 25mm high modules is that in some parts of the world, at least, you can get steel rulers that are 25mm wide. And that makes life a lot easier when you're cutting the 25mm wide strips of 3mm balsa, as we will see. Now, I am fortunate in that the pieces of 3mm thick balsa wood that I get from the Spotlight craft store here in Australia comes in 50mm wide sheets in a bulk pack, and that means it's easy with my 25mm wide ruler to simply cut two 25mm strips. Normally the balsa comes in 75 and 100mm wide sheets if you're buying it from places like model aircraft supply places. Now, unless you're using some sort of super glue that won't destroy the core of the foam core, it will take time for your PVA type glue to set. So to hold everything in place, I use some track pins to provide a stable structure as I assemble the module. Now these ones I think are actually Atlas ones. I'm sure you can chase down all sorts of things. Anything of about the size I've got there will do the trick. When applying the glue, you don't need heaps of it, at least with the Weld Bond that I use. Just some small bits along like that. Even that to a point may be a bit much, but it's better to have a small amount ooze over and know you've got a good joint when it dries than having too little. This view shows how I've used two of those track pins to hold the balsa wood side against the foam core. So those pins go in through the balsa and into the foam core itself. Now, I didn't take a photo of it, but on the left and right hand sides of that part there, you will find there's at least one pin going from the balsa wall on the left into that central piece, and the same on the right hand side, at least one pin going into the adjacent piece of balsa wood to hold them together while the glue dries and just to provide a good solid structure. Now, when it comes to measuring up how long your piece of 25mm wide 3mm balsa should be, I do a rough estimate on off the foam core, add the 6mm, and then add another 2mm or so on top of that. So really, you're looking at the foam core plus 6 plus 2. So you're looking at foam core plus 8mm or thereabouts. It's better to have it overshoot a little bit and then just sand it back, whatever, once the joint's been made, than having it come up short and wasting that piece of balsa. As only two of the corners on a pentagonal module meet at 90 degrees, the other three will have to have some sanding back. I use what some people call an emery board. You can get them at supermarkets, chemists, wherever, sort of not exactly cosmetic but manicure type supplies are available. They work pretty well for filing down the softer balsa wood. It's a little bit of an art rather than a science getting the angle, but it is worth it. As you can see here, we've had to do a bit of sanding down. First of all, you've got the bottom piece, for want of a better term, where that 76 is going across, and that was the first piece that went on, and then I had to gently sand down the ends of that so that they roughly made up an angle that would allow the sides on the left and the right to fit over them without any gaps. And then once that was all fixed in, I then had to sand those parts back to get a reasonable look. This is the what you might call the top of the pentagon, and you can see that the piece on the right I put on first and then sanded it back to a pretty close angle. Then I placed the other strip of balsa wood on the left so it overlapped it, estimated just a little bit past it in length, did the cut, and then sanded it back so it looks reasonable. It doesn't have to be perfect. We're not after perfection. We're after a good standard that allows compatibility and stability. Thank you. This is one of the two 90-degree corners on the pentagonal curve module. You might call them the top left and the top right corners of the module, and they do make life nice and easy. Here you can see the completely assembled pentagonal curve module. Now you can see there all 5 joints, the pins in the bottom part, but there are pins on the left and the right and the top left and top right as well. A fairly rigid and robust structure. This is the under view, and you can see that I have put some of the adhesive along the inside of all the joints between the balsa wood walls, very simply to make sure that they are going to stay together. As I said, we're trying to make a robust, reasonably good looking structure, and that certainly does the job. And here we go. This is the completed module with some track temporarily laid on it. This particular module is for the HON 30009 module system. The curve is not precisely in spot, but it gives you a good idea of how it goes on there. When it comes to being fixed down, that will be all dealt with, but I'll give it a good coat of paint beforehand. And as you can see to the module on the right, which is made to a slightly different way, which I will not be repeating, yeah, they can come up looking pretty good. Thank you for watching this video, and we hope you've enjoyed learning how to make 45-degree pentagonal curve modules for the pocket-sized module system. You can find out more about us from the Facebook group. You can ask questions there. The guidelines are there, sometimes a little tricky to find in the file section, but they are there, and you can always just put a post on the Facebook group and just simply say, hey, I can't find the guidelines. And someone will chime in and give you a hand to find them. There are a lot of people having a lot of fun with these modules. They may not be suited to you for a whole layout, but it may be a good way to practice a scenery technique. And certainly in the club situation, you can make up a reasonable little layout that everybody can contribute to and take out to public displays with a really easy setup. Anyway, enjoy and contact us through the group. Thank you.